I gotta think about how we want to do this.
We're just two dudes doing a podcast because we have nothing better to do on a Saturday afternoon and we're trying to escape from our kids.
It's true. On this week's episode, we're going to cover a few different topics. One of them being EV. Your thoughts?
They can't afford one because they're too expensive, but it is what it is. I think the reason being though is the fad is not dying. It's getting too mainstream and they're getting more and more expensive. Now, I will say that some companies are bringing out cheaper versions, like, the Model 3 is getting a little cheaper for Tesla.
I think the Model 3 is like, what, 35 grand out the door right now?
No, it's starting right now. You get it for like 29. Yeah. And there's a rumor going around that Tesla's going to make even a cheaper EV. But yeah, with every other company coming out with EVs, they're through the roof. The Ford Lightning that doesn't sell, the Mach-E that doesn't sell are still $60,000, $80,000 MSRP. It's insane. And so even the Volkswagen that came out, this Volkswagen is amazing. The Volkswagen Buzz, and it's expensive as hell. MSRP is $80,000.
Yeah, $80,000 starting. I think that's fully loaded. I don't think there's different trim packages because it's a new model. They're only doing one trim, is selling for 80 grand. As far as designs, I really like the design of the Buzz, but that's only because it's based on the iconic Volkswagen microbus.
It already has the original design to it, aspect of it that everyone already loves.
Exactly.
Dude, can you imagine if they do an electric Beetle? I would buy that.
I would get that.
Like an old school style Beetle, like the bus. That'd be cool.
Right.
But yeah, the problem too, though, is with all these EVs, I feel like, every company is different, right? Every brand is different. Some brands have 100 different trims forward, but not for the Lightning. It's weird.
Right.
A lot of electric brands are not doing multiple different trim levels.
Well, and here's the thing about the Lightning. I actually like the Lightning, and I like it for a big reason that they didn't try to reimagine what the pickup should look like.
Yeah.
It's not like
the design is very
right. It's
original looking.
It's not like the Rivian. It's not like the Tesla. They didn't go back and try to redesign a pickup. It looks like an F-150. As a matter of fact, if you see one going down the road, sometimes I just have to look at the design on it, mainly the headlights, because it has that one bar that goes across the entire thing to even know if it's a Lightning or just a regular F-150. But for $100,000 MSRP off the lot, and doesn't have a Tesla fast charger equipped plug. You have to get an adapter for that. Mm-hmm. Also, what I think the range is 300 miles. To me, that's just not worth it. If for that big of a vehicle, they should have way more range than 300-ish miles.
Yeah, I think it's like 380 actually, if I remember correctly. But so have you ever driven the Ford Lightning?
I have not.
So I will say the Ford Lightning drives. How the pedal reacts to your foot feels like if you're just hitting a button. It's so weird. So I drove the Ford Lightning and the Ford Mach-E same day. The Mach-E gave a lot of feedback in the pedal, but the Ford Lightning didn't. There was no feedback. It felt like I was hitting a button to go, and it was terrible driving experience.
See, I feel that way about any EV that I've ever driven, though, and I've only driven the Mach-E and a Tesla.
Yeah, it's very similar.
It's almost like everything's a switch. It's very on-off. There's no feedback. And child of the 80s, I grew up on a manual transmission 4-cylinder truck. So I've always had throttle response feedback, brake pedal feedback, clutch feedback. And it's just weird to, I end up in EVs, I end up braking way too hard until I get used to it because it is a switch. It's you have them or you don't.
Have you driven so just to correct both of us, MSRP right now for Lightning has actually gone down. It's $62,000 for a starting price.
That's still way too much.
It's still way too much for that truck. And then 240 range on the low end, 320 on the high end for the extended range.
All right, so we were close, around 300 range. But again, if you're buying the low end for $60,000 and only getting 240 in a huge vehicle,
in a vehicle that's not going to get good EV range anyways because it's so big. And it's great because it does have a high towing capacity, 5,000 to 7,000 pounds.
Yeah, but if you're hauling 5,000 pounds in that truck, other channels have already done this. You haul anything in that truck, you're not getting that 240 mile range.
You're getting 180 to the max.
If that.
Yeah, it's insane. And then, so I was going to go back and circle back around. So the driving experience of driving experience of EV specifically. Have you driven with regenerative braking before?
Not on an EV.
Okay.
I have on a hybrid.
I will say on the regenerative braking side with an EV, especially in the Teslas, what it does is it gives feedback and you don't have to brake. So what you do is you let off the pedal and it comes to a stop by itself. And that gives feedback in the actual pedal, which is very cool. I think it's a very cool idea, not just to save your brakes, but it gives you that extra feedback that you like to kind of feel like the car is slowing itself down.
Right.
It does get some getting used to, and there are different levels. I know Tesla, I believe, is only one specific level. I drove another, I think it may have been the Mach-E that gives an option of 3 different levels of regenerative braking. And I also drove one of the Kia EVs and a couple other EVs. And they all have their own different things, right? But with the regenerative braking, I felt like it was a better driving experience because it gives you that feedback like we don't typically have it.
Yeah, I actually need to get out there and drive a few more EVs to get the feel and get just the experience of doing it. I will say, like, I have driven a couple of cars with regenerative braking, and the one thing I did appreciate about those is that it does feel like you're still driving a gas engine car with a standard transmission because, as you know, like with an automatic transmission, you let off the gas, you're going to start feeling the pull of the car trying to slow itself down. With regenerative braking, you get that same kind of feeling. I feel like if you didn't have regenerative braking on an EV, it's just going to feel like you're on a skateboard and it's just, coasting to a stop. Yeah. So let's go back to the original questions. Do we feel EVs are a dying fad?
I don't think so. I think it's only going to get more and more mainstream as they, come out with more models as things get older. The cool thing about, the EVs as well is there's no maintenance. There's no oil changes. There's no, besides tires.
Right, but you have to replace your tires as many times as you change, often as you change your oil.
Is 5 times easier than going to change your own oil. Like you can go to.
It's also 10 times more expensive.
It is, but at the overall grand scheme of things, engine brakes, that's $3,000, $4,000. If a battery goes out, most of these companies now offer warranties up to 100,000 miles, if not more, for batteries because they know how expensive it is. Tesla covers everything up to 100,000 miles, but up until that, even then you're seeing Teslas go to 150, 160, 170,000 miles with no problems. Right. And that's only because they're not old enough to get to that yet. Yeah. We haven't seen that. And so I'm excited to see where they go and how long they're able to actually last and see how long a Tesla can last. And, I think with the technology we have now, it's going to be even longer because everything, in tech, this, it expands every single year and grows and, goes to the next level and upgrades every single year. We have new technology coming out all the time. I don't think it's going to stop. I think it's going to continue to grow. I think the companies that are integrating EV are definitely going to take over the space, especially for the daily drivers. I think that's going to be the biggest thing, especially with all the laws going into place that, especially in California and these bigger places that require people to not be able to have these gas guzzling cars that produce a lot of emissions.
And California just passed that law where you have to have all new houses have to have an EV charging station built in.
So that's not going to stop. I mean, California is usually they kick off. That's where it starts. But there's going to be other states that do the exact same thing, and I think it's not going to stop. I think it's not going to die anytime soon. I don't know about you, but I think it's only going to keep growing.
My opinion is I don't think that they're going to go away, but I don't think it's going to be a high mix of EVs like everyone originally thought. I mean, the government's had this big push that they wanted all electric vehicles, I think by 2035 or something like that. And I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, even Elon Musk, the guy leading the charge in EVs, has said the infrastructure for electric charging is not there. The infrastructure needed to switch everybody to an EV is just not there. Plus, you just, until the range comes up, you're still going to need some kind of fuel burning engine in the world. Now, what I do think is going to happen is that over the next 10 years, we are going to see a higher mix of EVs, even than what we see now, but we'll also see a higher mix of alternative clean burning options. So like hydrogen being one of them. Toyota is pushing hard to develop a hydrogen engine as well as a hydrogen charging station, along with a fuel cell that will be able to be mainstream. So once they get that going, I think,
but that's
honestly,
been going on for years, though, right? They've been trying to develop that for years.
It has, but the nice thing about hydrogen is, like, even our cars sitting in the driveway that are all gas cars right now, those could, in theory, be converted over to hydrogen with very minimal changes, and it's still a internal moving engine. It's something that can be maintenance just like we maintenance our cars now. The only thing that you're really changing is the fuel and the fuel delivery system. The biggest thing right now that I think is holding them back is the fuel cell itself, because you have to develop something that can take an impact. And when you put hydrogen in a compressed state enough for a vehicle to run on, it is under a ton of pressure. So if you have that in the back of your car and you get rear-ended, like, it's going to be a massive explosion. And so, yeah, I think what we're lacking is the technology of being able to contain that. And also in the case of an impact, how do you safely disperse all of that pent up energy? Plus then there's like the delivery stations, and you got to add in, just like we've seen with fast chargers, you got to add in ways to go fuel hydrogen vehicles. Yeah. The other thing I see as that we're probably going to see tons more of over the next few years is hybrids. I think hybrids are a really good just in between of both EV and gas, where you get the fuel saving of having the electric motor, but you get the range of also having the gas backup. I mean, a car that I've test driven and I kind of want is the hybrid Maverick. And I've seen people get 45 plus miles to the gallon in that thing, in that little pickup. And to me, that's awesome. And it's a great looking truck.
But I think the problem, though, there is with hydrogen and, hybrids and things like that, the maintenance is where the problem lies. I think it's going to continue to, like you said, you're going to have to transfer over with hydrogen style, where everyone's going to have to learn the new setup. That's not as mainstream as it is right now. EVs are here. They're here now. And I think that's going to kind of pull our environment and kind of run that, at least for the next 10, 15 years, because they're here now and that's what's in the ecosystem. And, even with like newer Model 3s and newer Teslas, they're getting up to 400-mile range with a long range now, which is, from 4 years ago, that was like 240-mile range standard. Like, that's a huge jump, I think. And then also I was going to talk about, Tesla network. Have you heard about that yet?
No.
So the Tesla network, they released this, I think maybe like 2 or 3 months ago. What they're going to allow people to do is service out their cars that they own, Tesla product cars, as cabs, and let the people that own the cars collect the revenue off of those cabs, like an Uber or Lyft, but they'll be, automated. And so I think that's also a huge, benefit of having an EV and having a car that has autopilot. Not saying that other cars won't get autopilot, gas powered cars won't either eventually. But I think, Tesla leading the charge is always going to be, a point of conversation in the environment because of everything, Tesla's trying to do. They're trying to be innovative. They're trying to, push the line forward. They don't ever push the line. They come out the same product year after year. It works. Don't get me wrong. It works, right? And same with Honda, the hydrogen, things that they're working on, the hydrogen engines, it works, but they're not pushing the limit. They're not pushing the envelope to try new things. And I think that's where a lot of these EV companies, Rivian, Tesla, they kind of exceed in those aspects and in those, niche kind of situations. And I think, for EVs specifically, I think Tesla's the only car company that's an EV company that has come to the mainstream line. Like, they can put themselves against Ford. They can put themselves against these bigger companies. Rivian, not so much. Like, the smaller EVs, yeah, they're great. And you see them here and there, but they're not leading the charge. They're not, you can't see a Rivian every time you go out the house. Every time I walk out my house, I see 6 Teslas,
Well, especially in my neighborhood.
Yeah. And so, I don't think that's ever going to stop. And I think, Tesla being as big as they are, and, they've had their ups and downs. Every company has. But you look at what they've accomplished in the last, since they've been, really mainstream 10 years ago versus what Ford's accomplished in the last 100 years. And the time frame that they've completed and accomplished what they've accomplished, I think is astounding. And I think, I don't think it's going to stop.
I think I compare Tesla to Apple with the iPhone 10 years ago. 10 years ago, you had other manufacturers making smartphones, but when Apple hit the market with the iPhone, they didn't just stop at, hey, we can do this too. They pushed the envelope and they brought new technology. And then just like the way Tesla is with EVs, all of these other companies are having to play catch up.
Yeah.
Now, I will say, like, with EVs, I kind of get hung up on the big push for, hey, they're safer for the environment. And I think that's like one of the big push for the government trying to mandate that, hey, we need to have EVs by a certain date, is they're going under the guise of that this will be better for the environment. And that's already been proven to be bunked. I mean, Jeremy Clarkson said it best. You can't think that mining an ore from one country, putting it on a boat, sending it to another country to be refined, putting it on a boat to go to another country or a train to have it made into a battery for it to be shipped back to Texas to be put into a car is more ecologically friendly. Yeah. It's not. Now, with that being said, that's why I kind of lean to hydrogen is the better way to go. If you look up videos from Adam Maroon's Everything from a few years ago, they went in and looked and they figured out, like, hey, the best way that we can help the environment is essentially stop buying new cars, because we have already all of these vehicles on the road. All of this metal has been mined and refined, and now we're having to keep going and digging for new metals and digging for new ways to refine. And especially with EVs, like, we're always looking for new ways to make better, longer lasting batteries. But if we had a way to take our existing vehicles that are on the road and convert them into a safer, cleaner fuel source that ultimately, at the end of the day, it expels water. And that's the exhaust of hydrogen. It's water vapor, which is, good for everything. I think that's why hydrogen is ultimately the better and the safer way for the planet to go.
I think it'd be cool to see a company come out with a plug and play EV conversion that, once we get, because the problem now that we have is these batteries are so big. They have to take up so much space in the car, and they're not easy to, swap everything out in the car. But if we could condense what we have, and I do think that's going to happen as technology progresses, and, you've seen it in technology. Chips have gotten smaller. We have microscopic chips now. It's only going to continue, I feel like, as we continue to, learn and create more efficient batteries, that they are going to get smaller, and they are going to give us options to convert cars that have been on the road for a long time to EVs in a more mainstream, standard way.
That is actually something I would like to see, because... And I don't know, because I'm torn on that, because I think it's cool. I mean, we've seen classic cars like the 67 Mustang, the Zombie, that was converted to an electric motor with a battery setup. But therein there is the problem, as you said, is the size of the batteries that are needed. That car had like a 50-mile range, because you couldn't just take the whole bottom of a classic Mustang and convert it into a battery pack. So battery technology is definitely the huge limiter. And honestly, I think we're still a decade before we could see solid states and compressed battery technology that has a higher range. Yeah.
And it's interesting that you said, the entire thing about EVs not being, as efficient for the environment and things like that. It's not really in the grand scheme of things, we're not really helping the environment as much as we think we are driving an EV.
No.
But I will say, I do think it's helping the economy. Think about it this way. How much gas prices would be if we didn't have as many EVs on the road? Like, if we didn't ever create an EV car, Tesla never started, right? How expensive would it be to pay for gas right now?
Hey, at the time of this video, I'm paying less than $3 for premium. So thank you, Tesla drivers.
Thank you, Tesla drivers. Thank you, EV drivers.
Yeah.
It's like, you got to think about it. Like, we didn't have any EVs at all, right? We were all still driving gas-powered cars. It'd be insane. We'd be paying probably $20 a gallon at this point because of how,
I think California already is.
Yeah, pretty much. Because of how, much gas, one, is scarce. It's already a scarce resource, and we're continuously getting to a point where it's even more scarce. But yeah, I would be curious to see if anybody's ever made that calculation on how much gas prices would be if EVs never existed. I'm about to look that up.
All right, if you can do the math, put it in the comments. Let us know. All right, so here's my last thing I want to touch on EVs.
This ugly thing?
Yes. It's the overall design. So like, all right, so Dodge has released the new Charger. I think they're already hitting dealerships. I actually kind of like the 2-door. But yeah, the 4-door, it's just, I don't know. I'm not sold on it. It's atrocious.
Yeah.
So why bring back the old Dodge badge just to signify that we're going electric? That doesn't make any sense to me. But also, like, a common thing that I've been seeing in EVs on all new models is, why do we have a light bar going all the way across?
Yeah.
Like, why? That is not needed. And like, everyone is doing it. I mean, that's the easiest way that you can signify or know that it's an EV on the road, is it has one freaking light bar going all the way across. So yeah,
it's funny because Dodge did that originally, with the tail light. They did
Yes.
on the Challenger and Chargers. They did do that. But I would have been happy if they would have just kept it that way. Did the circles in the front? I always liked the circles. I always thought the circles really defined the car with the Charger. It really made it look standard and like muscle. But this doesn't look muscle. This looks like a sedan that I would pay $30,000 for, and that'd be done.
It's mediocre.
Yeah, it's mediocre.
Yeah.
It's nothing. And then even the 2-door, like the 2-door doesn't look bad. But I still think it lacks the luster that Dodge has always had. It lacks that, I get, Dodge Challengers, they've never been anything like crazy design wise, but we've always got a body kit. We've always got, a wide body kit. We've had the Super Bs and the SRT8s and the
Hellcats, the Hellcat wide body.
Yeah, we've always had a stature, and and I think Dodge going away from that is it's going to cut their entire fan base.
No, they shot themselves in the foot because everyone who bought Dodges over the last 10 years, they all bought them because they had big V8s, they sounded awesome, and they looked great. And you've taken away all of that appeal in this design.
Which, again, I am all for EVs. I'm a huge EV fan. This should have been an EV alternative. It should have been a V8 standard. It should have been the normal 392s, the superchargers, everything that they normally do with a V8 or with a EV alternate in a EV, whatever. Even if they did just the 4-door in an EV as like a commute car, that would have been perfect. And then they still would have got the people that want the EVs, because nobody that drives these cars now are going to buy an EV Challenger. Like they don't want it.
All right, so let's throw let's break the internet with a debate, and this is a hot one. The Mach-E isn't a Mustang.
Mustang by name, not by stature.
Agreed.
I think it's a cool car. I think, again,
I liked it when it launched.
Being an EV fan, I like how it looks. I like the crossover. I like how it's more of a standard hatchback kind of style. But I don't think they should have used. I like the name Mach-E. I thought that was cool. The Mustang badge was not needed. They could have done it with just a Ford Mach-E, because I've always called it a Mach-E. I've never called it a Mustang Mach-E, because I don't see it as a Mustang.
What I would have preferred, and what they should have done, is instead of calling it a Mustang Mach-E, close to what you're saying, they back in the 60s, 70s, they had the Ford Galaxy. They should have badged it a Galax-E.
Galax-E.
Bring back the old bring back the old Galaxy name, Ford, if you're listening. Right?
Good ideas. Hire us.
Yeah, write me a check. Hire us. Do what you got to do. But yeah, bring back the Galaxy name that's not being currently used. You save your Mustang fan base, and you get to introduce a new EV while still keeping the lackluster not lackluster, but keeping a familiar name to bring into the market.
Yeah, which again, I also think, I agree with you. I think they should have either kept it the Mach-E or like done something outside of the Mustang brand, because what they could have done is taken the Mustang body and did the exact same Dodge did and give an alternative EV version of the Mustang and called that the Mustang.
Well, Chevy's doing that with the C8 Corvette, where they're bringing out the E-Ray.
Yeah,
and it's essentially going to be a C8 Corvette with an electric drivetrain.
Yeah, Ford missed a huge opportunity there.
Absolutely.
They were trying. What I think is, again, they were trying to use the Mustang branding and the Mustang name as their kind of like kickoff to give them some type of edge.
It's riding your coattail.
Yeah, and it flopped. And I don't think anybody that has driven a Mach-E does love it. It's a good car, but like it's not a Mustang.
Agreed. All right, so here's where we're definitely going to disagree, and I'm going to highlight this one. I hate the way these cars look, and it's all of them. It's the 3 Series, it's the X, It's the Y, all of them. Like
SCXY.
Yes, the whole sexy lineup.
Yeah, the whole sexy lineup, baby.
They all look like bland vanilla blobs on the road. And what really just like every single time that I see a bunch of them together, they're always the same color. Like I don't think I've ever seen like maybe this ruby
That's
red.
the expensive.
Yeah, like maybe a couple of times, but they're always white, gray, black, and that dark blue.
And it's funny that they brand it with the red. I think the red is the worst color on this car. I hate it on this car. I've never liked it. I don't like the ruby red. I don't like it on any of the Teslas. Honestly.
I actually like that red.
See, that's where we draw the line. I like the white. Like I like the clean, classic millennial. Maybe that's what it is. Minimalist style. But I think what Tesla does well. And again, it's not for everyone. You don't like it. It is what it is. But I think what they do well is they created a car that's timeless. That car is it's bland, yes, but it has enough style and enough, curves to not go out of style. Like people are still going to buy it. In 10 years, people are still going to buy that exact model because they like it. And it's a mainstream design. Now, for people like you who like a little more edge, a little more flair, it's not for you.
These are designed for people who they're iPhone users.
Yes, it is.
I don't need anything crazy fancy. I don't need
because this is going to be just like the model or the iPhone 8, 16. Or what is it? 10 years ago now.
Yeah.
And the iPhone 16 now they look the exact same. That model in 10 years is going to look the exact same.
Yeah, it'll just be a little bit faster and have a little bit more speed and a little bit more range. But overall, the body is exactly the same. Now,
don't
that thing.
Oh god. The trash can.
That it is a dumpster on wheels.
I can't get behind. Tesla. I can't get behind this one. I'm sorry, but like every time I see this thing, it looks like just a dumpster fire.
The Cybertruck looks like Elon Musk found a drawing of a pickup that he drew back in kindergarten, and someone made him a bet that he couldn't sell something that looked like that.
I mean, all to him if that was it, because here's the story. But here's
the bad thing though, they're selling.
Oh, because
now, granted, they're recalled 2 weeks later, but they are
and just
selling.
Like Apple, people are going to buy the most expensive thing. It is what it is. There's enough.
They're fashion.
Enough fanboys out there to keep that train going.
Well,
fanboys for Cybertruck.
I don't even think this is a fanboy thing. I think this is because it's $100,000 truck and because it's so ugly. And it's gained popularity. It's hey, I can get one and you can't.
Yeah. Well, again, it's just like the new Apple VR. $3,000 VR.
Oh yeah. I've seen videos from the 10 network here in town where you've got McLarens, Maseratis, Lambos, and then 10 Cybertrucks hanging out with them too. And they're only invited because they bought a damn Cybertruck.
Yeah, they spent $100,000 on a trash can.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And can we talk about, I'm going to look at the camera for this one.
Uh-oh.
If you wrap that piece of and wrap in a different color that makes it look like just matte crap, please stop. We're begging you. I'm tired of seeing the lightning.
Oh yeah.
Fake ass lightning wrap that doesn't even look good.
Or the graffiti. I saw one that was like a brick wall with graffiti.
Like I saw one that was. I'll say the gold wrap wasn't bad looking because it looks similar to what it comes in. But like the crap fake lightning that looks like a NASCAR wrap from 2004 that I put on NASCAR in the game back in the day. You know what I'm talking about? The lightning graffiti. I can't stand it, dude.
Hold on, I'm going to go to the camera too. The guys who wrap them in matte black, you're not edgy, you're cheap.
Yeah.
Stop it.
For real. And like the matte black doesn't look terrible, but the problem is with that car, there's no lines.
Right.
And so it just looks like a freaking canvas of black.
A matte black on 68 Charger, that is beautiful because it has the curves to support it. That thing does not.
It needs a shine. It needs something that like gives out a reflective something because it's just a wall of what is it, aluminum?
Yeah,
yeah,
and also the worst part about the Cybertruck, you can't truck with it.
No,
it has no ability to do truck stuff. Everyone's seen the videos of it not being able to tow, not being able to do 4-wheel drive stuff. I mean, I just saw one recently. Where he destroyed his. I just saw one recently where there was one stuck in a snowdrift on the side of the road because it couldn't get traction enough to get out.
Yeah.
The one that made me laugh the other day, and I tried to get a picture of it because I saw it on the road. It was a Cybertruck. and the guy had to put like the universal roof racks like you have on the top of your car, just so he could have a place to haul things, because you can't put anything in the bed.
The bed is so small compared to like a typical standard truck. And yeah, I don't know, man. I think you're right. I think it was a very mainstream way of like just, oh, this is edgy because it looks, different than everybody else's truck, but it's not designed well. It was never designed well. I don't think it was, designed for somebody that is a day-to-day user. I think it was designed for the fanboy. I think it was designed for the cyberpunk douchebag who can afford $100,000 truck and not worry about it.
Are we officially naming the Tesla fanboys as cyberpunks?
Cyberdicks.
All right, hashtag it.
Cyberpunks. But that's what it is, man. I think, and again, it goes back to, buying the most expensive Apple products. It goes back to people that these products, they don't need it, but they want it as a staple piece.
What they need is a bus pass.
Absolutely.
All right. So electric vehicles wrap up at the end of the day. Dying fad. We don't think so. I don't think so. He's a huge EV fanboy. So no, they're not going away, but I don't think they're going to become as mainstream as originally planned. I feel like they're 3D televisions. It was
a fad.
Yeah, it was something that was predicted as huge, and now you can hardly ever find them.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's that bad, but I do think it's not going to go away soon.
Agreed.